Hello, everyone, and welcome back to one of these interview episodes of the SWW show. I'm Mike, and today with me a special guest to talk about what honestly looks like a very fun upcoming horror game. To get us started, do you mind introducing yourself and the game we're here to talk about?
Yes, my name is Mustafa. I am the founder and solo developer of Suburb Path. So my gaming experience or game industry experience, I started working in Treyarch like back in 2016 to 2019 during the development of Black Ops 4. I was doing administration work, so I didn't actually, do anything with Black Ops 4. But I got to work with like basically all the developers there. And I learned to use the level editor there, though they never hired me as a level designer. That's why I left. And then after that, I worked at Zwift, which is a it's a cycling game. Basically, think of Peloton, except more of a video game rather than having streaming videos.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I worked there for a while, doing QA work, and then I got laid off last year. And after the layoff, the industry is very dry, like both video game industry, tech industry, anything with software development. It's very dry. There's so many job applicants and not enough jobs. So I decided to while I'm looking for work, I decided to launch my own game studio, Suburb Path. And I've released a game earlier this year called Nexus Defenders. I released it on Steam, and I am currently working on Beware Tomorrow. It's pretty close to being finished. Development got a little rocky the past few weeks or so, but I should be publishing it later next month in January.
Perfect. So let's kind of there's a lot to kind of dig in there. So I'm curious. Obviously, as I kind of completely agree. So background, I'm a programmer by trade, so I understand the like fun part of like the industry right now and kind of in that weird state it's been. What is kind
Mhm.
of especially you were kind of on that you were like especially on the game side too kind of. So do you feel kind of over this last few years kind of from someone who was like in the beast I guess more so did you do you kind of see like that slowdown was happening or kind of thing, or has it kind of been like was it kind of the same amount of shock that it seems like everyone just been off almost caught off guard by what happened?
So when I worked at Zwift, um, now Zwift itself, I don't feel like it represents the entire industry because Zwift is uh, at the time it was considered a startup, even though they were like 5 years old by the time I joined. They were still considered a startup, but they were still very big. But every single year I was there was a big layoff, and I attribute that to bad management. So it wasn't a surprise to me that when I got laid off, it was like basically winning the lottery tickets because they just I guess randomly pull people's names out of hats or whatever. I don't know what the process is, but um, yeah, I was selected for the layoff last year, and then this year, like basically everybody else got laid off. I feel like the janitor is running the software at this point. Um, but as far as like an industry, industry whole, um, it seems more like it had to do a lot with the 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 increase of revenue during the lockdowns during 2020. um a lot of people, they're stuck at home. They have money to spend on entertainment, so they started spending it on video games. And uh I know Zwift was definitely benefiting because, as I mentioned, Zwift is a an indoor cycling game, and people were not allowed to go outside, so they're like, okay, let me try this indoor cycling thing uh to stay active. And so With Zwift, it's a subscription model. You pay, I can't remember, it's like $30 a month or something along those lines. Um, and the subscriptions usually they increase during the winter. The number of subscriptions increase during the winter, and then during the summer they drop because people want to ride their bikes outside. They don't want to ride their bikes inside. But the lockdown started during the summer of 2020, or before the summer. So rather than seeing the subscriptions go down, the subscriptions were going up.
Through the roof. That's the yeah.
Yeah,
No,
they're
that
going through the
sounds.
roof.
I say that sounds like a
Yes.
fun problem there. So
Yeah.
obviously as we're
Uh,
oh go on.
yeah. So basically, like Zwift started uh hiring much more people due to the number or the amount of revenue we're making. And I imagine that the other large studios were doing the same thing. Like once a large studio, especially AAA studios that have investors and stakeholders, they want to see the company grow. um when they're given more money, and so that's why they hire more people. But then once that money stopped after the lockdowns ended, then everything came falling down.
No, that makes sense. But yeah, as I say, so obviously as we're talking, then as you said, then your time there ended, and now you are running. You said Suburb Path. So
Yes,
so
suburb map.
so what's interesting is so obviously we're talking about Beware tomorrow. We're going to be in a second, and you just released though Nexus Defenders like this calendar year. So I'm very curious, kind of, especially as the solo trying to run the studio now. How are you flipping these games around kind of so fast, or kind of are you running them in parallel? Are you really just jumping off one to run to the next one? Kind of what's your kind of plan there?
So the plan with my games is that I make very small scale games. Nexus Defenders, it took me 16 weeks to from the inception of its design to the time I released it. It was 16 weeks, and this was because for many reasons. One reason is I want to make small games due to the fact that I don't want to waste people's time. I feel like I want people to just play something real quick and get it over with. And another reason is like the average amount of time the majority of people play, like the median time that people play on indie games, it's about 1 hour. Most people who buy an indie game, they'll either like not even touch it or they'll spend about an hour playing it. It's a very small minority of people who will buy an indie game and spend like 16 plus hours. So that's why I want to spend as short of a development cycle on these games as possible. And also, like while I'm starting a business, if I have no games released, I'm making no money.
This is true. This is very much a revenue incentive. So it's always that small studio problem. I'll just say let's kind of we've kind of walked on thing, but let's jump into it. So as we said, you are working on and will be releasing Beware tomorrow, beginning of next year. So
Yes.
what is kind of if I'm someone who's interested in Beware tomorrow, walk me through kind of what's going on. I'm a player. Like who am I? What am I doing in this game?
Yeah, so Beware Tomorrow, it's a first person horror game. Um I take inspiration from like the premise is kind of like the Saw movies. Are you familiar with those?
Yeah, I'm familiar with those.
Yeah, where they like basically wake up in a facility, they don't know what's going on. So that's a similar premise. You wake up in a facility, you're locked up, and you have to solve puzzles to escape the facility. And facility as well, and he's basically wandering around. And if he finds you, he'll easily take you out. Like you could get taken out in like 2 or 3 hits. So it's kind of a stealth game in the sense that you want to avoid this guy. He's told that you kidnapped his son, so he's being manipulated, you're being manipulated, and you have to like escape this facility. um uh, before he kills you. It's going to be like similar to Nexus Defenders. It's a very small game. I'm trying to keep it like around like an hour or so, and just make it really short. But I will also price it fairly as well. I'm not, it's not going to be like a $20 game. It's more going to be more like around $3 or $4.
That's so many. So there's many questions over there. So I'm curious. So obviously, you said this is gonna be one of those short, little kind of Saw inspired type games. What made you kind of watch those films or kind of think about what you want to do next, and be this the thing you're drawn towards?
Let's see what really inspired me with that. So, well, basically, the first step to making a game uh, that I learned. I made Nexus Defenders, and I realized that's not good. That it didn't sell well at all because it's a tower defense game. But with after that, I was like, okay, I need to make a game that will actually sell. Not every genre is made equal. Some genres are better selling than others. So it's like you got to like start with like this Venn diagram of three circles. One circle being the game that you want to make. Another circle being the game that you're able to make. And the third being the game that sells well. And when you get those three circles together, you have that overlap. That's the game you got to make. So I was like, okay, um, I like um, I like games like Deus Ex, immersive sims. And so I figured I'd make something like that, an immersive sim where you have like rather than a giant world like Deus Ex, because Deus Ex is huge. So obviously I'm not going to make a big world or a city, but uh, I'm making like a really small facility. Hence the reason why there's only one guy, one enemy, and also horror games is one of the better selling genres on Steam. So I figured I'd make it like a horror theme, on top of all that. And aside from horror selling well, I figured at the very least, as I'm working on this game, I can use this as a portfolio piece as I continue to um, uh, apply for jobs, because when you apply for like level design positions, they prefer to see like first person levels rather than like a top down strategy game level. Like that's not as interesting for your level design portfolio, which Nexus Defenders is top down levels, and it's just not that interesting.
No, that is very fair. I'm curious, kind of from you jumping from Nexus Defenders on to Beware Tomorrow. As we just said, obviously the camera is a bit different, and that inherently kind of changes the nuance, kind of how you see it and how you place levels. Was there any sort of rough transition, kind of going between the two and kind of figuring out your flow when creating this levels?
Oh yeah. I think one of the things I've learned about level design is that the closer the perspective you have to the level, the more time it will take you as a designer to make that level, and it won't pay off as much. So let me explain real quick. When you have uh like a 2D platformer. I was originally working on a 2D platform before I made Nexus Defenders, and then I scrapped that altogether for many reasons. Um, but one of the reasons I scrapped it is because it would take me like a week or so, maybe even longer, like a few weeks to make one level, but you get through the entire level in like 5 minutes. So the amount of work I was putting into making one level was not paying off for the amount of time that the player will get. Now, when I made Nexus Defenders, though, I'd spend like a day, maybe even less than that, to work on the environment for one level. And that one level takes the player 20 to 30 minutes. So there's a huge difference with the amount of time I put in developing versus what I get out as far as the amount of playtime for the player. And that's it's same with like a first person game. If, like especially if it's like a more fast paced shooter, you can work on like a one room or one hallway, and it'll take you a long time to make that hallway,
And they'll run
and then
right through it.
the player will just run through it in like 15 seconds.
Yeah, that's the age old problem of like, and it's funny is like we say the player could run through, right, and a lot of players will, but there's always also the players that then will stop, and that's what you like. But it has to be nice enough so if someone decides to not run through it, it also
Exactly.
looks nice.
Exactly. Like you got to build it for the person who will take their time and stare at everything, but then at the same time, majority of the people just like literally just run through it.
That is the that is especially you being a like a solo like your time is like your commodity, right, which is
Yeah.
the extra problem here, like yeah, that's always that age old balancing problem. I'm curious kind of as you've kind of gone through it, have you had any problems in this game or even Nexus Defenders where you had copes like you had like the scope creep kind of happening and you had to pull it back at all?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, scope creep is definitely a thing. So uh unlike you, I'm not a I don't have like a programming background. I have taken some programming courses, and you know I can read, like a C sharp and JavaScript. I can understand what's going on, but I'm not like a programmer. So um, I mainly stick with using templates. Like I use a template for Nexus Defenders. It was called like Tower Defense Toolkit 4, I think. And with Beware Tomorrow, I'm using a toolkit called like Ultimate Horror FPS Toolkit.
Oh no, I'm kind of familiar with
And
some of the other ultimate ones. I think it's the same company that does a lot of them.
okay. Yeah, so I use these, and like in my mind I want to do all these different like gameplay mechanics, or at least have like a specific gameplay loop. And as I'm trying to figure out how to do it with the template, then sometimes I'll hit a roadblock and be like, okay, this is just over my head as far as me trying to get it to do this thing. I need to like rework what's the gameplay loop and just take a step back and cut something out.
No, that's true. So did you have kind of walking in to this project kind of early on like a goal window? Like you were like, oh, I'm thinking that like I want players to run through an hour of content or two, kind of, or did that kind of more and morph kind of towards as you got towards the more end back end of this project?
Initially, so I always wanted this to be like a 1 hour, like around a 1 hour or 90 minutes long. But when I initially was designing this game, I my initial design document was more based on like the game The Room. Are you familiar with that? Like there's like four of them right now.
Yeah, there's
There's
like
one,
three or four.
two,
There are the
four.
escape room
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah, like there's like this box, this treasure chest. You have to like basically find the things to unlock the different puzzles. So the initial design was to like you go from one room and you have like these puzzles, and then it'll unlock the door to get to the next room. And if you don't unlock the puzzles in time, then a door will open, and the bad guy will come in and clobber you. um but I was like, man, this is not gonna work out with like the scale. It just seemed like it was gonna take too long for me to do, especially with like implementing like a timer mechanic. So what I ended up doing is I just decided to make like one facility that has like multiple paths, and you just kind of like have to like crawl around and try to avoid the guy as he's patrolling. So that just made it uh easier within my skill set, rather than like having like a linear path. Plus I think it makes it more interesting as far as like a level design perspective, to have that kind of like immersive sim, Deus Ex style. Like okay, here's a vent, and here's a door, and here's something else. And you have multiple ways to kind of like sneak around the place.
So especially with you kind of having kind of a natural content-y constraint, it kind of seems like a good way to kind of give the players a bunch of options in a tighter kind of space there. Is there...
Yeah.
So obviously we have this one inmate that's kind of like around and stuff. Is there any level of like you played around with like having multiple kind of AI components or anything, or is this kind of one constraint kind of come up kind of earlier in the process to kind of ground up like what the experience is?
Well, I did think about having multiple people at one point, but I was like, man, that might be too hard because of um how small the facility is, and if there's multiple people, then that really limits the amount of time you're able to like focus on one puzzle. Because some of these puzzles are like, like a fuse box on the wall. And if you're staring at that wall for too long, the guy's going to eventually come by as he's patrolling. He's going to see you. So, and if there's multiple people, two or three people, then it'll definitely restrict the amount of time you can focus on staring at the puzzles. Plus, I figured, story wise, it just makes it a little bit more interesting if I just focus on one guy.
No, that makes total sense. So again, for people who don't know, the game is Beware Tomorrow. You can currently wishlist it out on Steam. It says it's coming out in January on Steam. Is that still kind of what you're thinking for this next year release?
Yeah, I'm shooting for January. First, I was thinking early January, but my third kid came out last week, and things have slowed down since then. So it might be a little later January, but I'm really shooting for sometime in January to release it.
Perfect. Well, again, the game is Beware Tomorrow. As you said, that game will be a few bucks, kind of still be aside, but keep an eye out for the team. Go wishlist it now. Where else should we be sending people if they wanted to either check out your work, or maybe if you want to get people to try to hire you, anything like that? Where should we be sending people for all that information?
Yeah, so if they want to check out my games, my website is suburpath.com. That's SABRPATH.com. Sabr basically is like an Islamic term for like it's like stoicism or patience.
Oh, interesting. I was not aware of that, actually.
Yeah, I'm very religious, so I try to like whatever, like my biggest projects, I try to like make myself remind myself of the most important values. So I figured having the name of my studio be Suburb Path, keep myself focused. But yeah, suburpath.com. You can find like basically everything's on there. But other than that, like I've been trying to build my YouTube channel, which is kind of game development related, where I talk about my games, but I'm trying to focus more on just having a gamer audience. So I talk about other people's games as well. Like the biggest video that blew up on my channel is about Concord, but I try to keep things positive and say, hey, the we can learn from the mistakes from the other people's failures, and these are kind of tips on character design, concepts, stuff like that. But yeah, my YouTube channel is Suburb Path, same name, SABRPATH.
Perfect. Well, again, I want to say thank you for taking time out of your day, especially right now when life sounds extra busy. So thank you again for taking time out of your day to talk to us. And again, go wishlist the game. The game is Beware Tomorrow, and the last game, Nexus Defenders, is also currently available for $4.99 out on Steam.
Yeah, it will be on sale during the winter sale, which is right around the corner. I don't think I'm allowed to say the date because like NDAs, but yeah, everybody knows.
It's one of those you could Google. I actually don't remember. I remember there being a change of certain things. I think the words winter sale can be said now. You can't say this. I don't remember the exact rules, but I completely agree. Yeah. They're coming up sometime soon. I know that part's public, so keep an eye out for all that. And yeah, a lot of your favorite games will probably be on sale then too. So yeah.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Really appreciate you coming by.